Attacks like the one in New Zealand and Sri Lanka have led to questions about how extremist content spreads on social media. Turns out it may be baked into the algorithm and the way these platforms make money. YouTube has now removed over 20 million videos containing harmful material from the site. The company also says they'll be creating a better comment section to deal with the issue. But Richard Socher, chief scientist at Salesforce, says they're not dealing with the central issue, which is the algorithm.
I think right now the algorithms for recommending content are almost always exclusively geared towards creating more clicks, more time on YouTube, more clicks, more time spent on a timeline on a social media website, and so on. And that can be problematic. You could actually, in theory, have multifaceted objective functions that increase and maybe encourage to click on videos that are more informative, that are longer, that are coming from a reputable source or something like that. But right now, the single objective function is increase engagement for a lot of online media.
Joining me now to discuss this is CNET senior producer Dan Patterson. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So, the more we hear about social media troubles, the more we hear about artificial intelligence and algorithms. Explain how these algorithms work on social networks and how they can push people towards, I guess, what many would view as extremist content.
So only a few years ago, words like AI and algorithm were kind of weird, geeky jargon words. Now they're entering the mainstream, and it's important that we kind of understand how each works. AI and algorithms are sometimes paired together. They're really just complex code that determine what you see in the context of social media on your social platform. In Facebook, that's the news feed. Instagram, it's the photos you scroll through and the selection of those photos. On YouTube, it's the videos that you see, not just on the home screen, but also in the right sidebar. So the challenge that many of these social media companies have faced is this balance between monetization and making sure the platforms continue to grow. That is their intent, to make money and continue to grow, but balancing that with the safety of their users. And when I say safety, I mean not displaying propaganda or using that right rail in YouTube or the news feed as a way to demonstrate misinformation or other types of incorrect content.
Okay, there's a narrative that suggests that social media companies are responsible because this extremist content exists on their platforms. But is it also that people are actually seeking it out? I've never had any extremist videos or propaganda pop up on any of my social media feeds because I don't go looking for that stuff, nor do I ever click on anything that is or seems to me to be extremist in nature.
Well, Vlad, that is most internet users. The challenge is that you will hear this rhetoric used across the mainstream media that most of these companies have optimized for speed and virality over safety. And we put air quotes around safety. By that we mean not demonstrating or showing propaganda. But the challenge is kind of the rabbit hole effect. Surely you've experienced clicking one thing and then being interested in another item and then clicking and suddenly it's 6 hours later and you don't know how you got to your final destination. Oftentimes we use, if you work in the internet, you've heard this term SEO, search engine optimization. Let's not forget that YouTube is one of the largest search engines in the world, and bad actors will optimize, they'll figure out, they'll reverse engineer how the algorithm works and optimize content so that shows up when you're not intentionally seeking out this content, but that the recommendation engine gives you one more extreme video after another, and you kind of descend, you slide down that slope, starting in an innocent place and ending up in a kind of weird place.
There's a discussion to be had about the psychology of that, because I remember many, many years ago, Dave Chappelle did a skit about the early days of the internet, where he said walking through the internet or interacting with the internet was like walking on 42nd Street back in the 70s and 80s, where you had houses, movie theaters that showed porn and people trying to sell you drugs, and you had to keep just moving without talking or interacting with those people. And to your point about clicking and clicking and clicking, I tend to be aware that there are these nefarious intents or intentions behind some of these things, and I really rarely ever click on anything. If I'm looking for something and something weird pops up, I know that they're trying to get me, so I stay away. But not everybody's like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you as an adult might be a little more self-aware than someone who is a teenager or a child. And many of these companies have figured out how to optimize for our dopamine, right? To give us kind of little rewards. And so you'll seek out content that is rewarding to you, or that is interesting, or that causes you to click more and have what Socher said is more time spent on site. Now, I don't think he was blaming anyone, because all companies have to make money. But these companies right now, the big technology firms, are using artificial intelligence to try to track down some of the bad content, or the content that could bring liability to them.
Really fascinating stuff. Dan Patterson, always great to have you, my friend. Thank
You too.
Really interesting.